We took the freedom of speech away because that's been through the courts, and the court said, you have freedom of speech.
I think most of us take freedom of speech for granted because it's something we were all born with and never really had to fight for. And 10 years ago, I'm pretty sure almost none of us would have guessed that we'd soon be at a place where it could be taken from us. But we're at that place now. And to be honest, we've been there for a while. If you clicked on this video, you probably think the whole Jimmy Kimmel situation was fucked up. And I would agree with you. But what Trump just signed a few days ago, I promise you, is on a totally different level. This is something that's gonna affect all of us in ways that are really serious. And for whatever reason, nobody seems to be really talking about this. But before I get to all the details of what this diaper-wearing Nepo baby actually signed, I wanna go through this whole Jimmy Kimmel situation because I've heard a lot of misinformation on what actually happened. On September 18th, Jimmy Kimmel was doing his usual thing, phoning it in, doing that late night shit nobody really seems to like. In fairness to the crazy Republicans, I do agree that late night shows are garbage. I just agree for different reasons. But anyway, then Jimmy gets to his infamous Charlie Kirk segment where he says this.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. Okay. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. There's demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
After this aired, MAGA immediately went to stir up some fake outrage because they're MAGA and fake outrage is all they have.
What you'll find in this clip is that as Jimmy Kimmel goes on to make fun of Charlie Kirk's political assassination, he's making fun of it. He's using it as an opportunity to attack President Trump. He's standing on the grave of Charlie Kirk, lying about his assassin, saying Charlie deserved it, and then using Charlie's assassination, the murder of a father, the orphaning of his children, the widowing of his wife, the dispatching by left-wing terrorism what would have been possibly one of the greatest presidents in American history. That was the path that Charlie was on. We all knew it. Jimmy Kimmel is taking it as an opportunity to lie to his audience and victim blame.
Holy shit, this guy is such a dramatic little bitch. I'm gonna be nice and ignore that president part because I know a lot of you guys are still mourning and you don't have much to lose. But another thing, when did Jimmy say that he deserved it? Never said that. This is what the MAGA media does all the time. They sneak in big exaggerations or just outright lies in between the truth, taking their audience further and further away from reality. But anyway, a few days after that, Brendan Carr, head of the FCC, goes on to this same very heterosexual man's podcast where he threatens Kimmel, Disney, and a few others.
But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct and take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. I mean, obviously, look, there's calls for Kimmel to be fired. I think, you could certainly see a path forward for suspension over this. And again, the FCC is going to have remedies that we could look at. And again, we may ultimately be called to be a judge on that.
I mean, this shit was so blatant that even the human elephant seal that is known as Ted Cruz called it out for what it was.
What he is saying is Jimmy Kimmel was lying. That's true. He was lying. And his lying to the American people is not in the public interest. And so he threatens explicitly, we're going to cancel ABC's license. We're going to take him off the air so ABC cannot broadcast anymore. And I got to say, he threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. And I got to say, look, I understand. Jimmy Kimmel has mocked me so many times I cannot count. But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying,
what
we
you
don't
can't
like
say
what you, the media, have said, We're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like. That will end up bad for conservatives.
Now, he did do this in the most Ted Cruz way humanly possible.
Nice bar you have here.
But anytime he speaks against Trump in any form, it's an improvement on him, so just trying to be nice. And then that same day, Disney suspends Kimmel indefinitely. Also, I am aware that Kimmel's show is back now. Congratulations to him. We will be addressing that later in the video, don't worry. And then after the news was made public about Kimmel's show being canceled, the head of the FCC responded with this. So some fucking dork named Brian Stelter said, I asked FCC Chair Brendan Carr if he had any new comment now that ABC has pulled Jimmy Kimmel's show, and he sent me this GIF. He probably says GIF because he's a fucking dork. And then Brendan Carr, the head of the FCC, the person who gets to control what goes on television, responds with this shit. Fucking Michael Scott memes, really? These are the most unserious people I've ever seen. I'm just saying, if you're gonna go like full authoritarian dictatorship, can we at least do it in a way that's not embarrassing as fuck? I feel like I'm not asking for a lot here. While we're on the topic, let's go over who Brendan Carr actually is. He served as a senior Republican for the FCC. He was one of the writers of Project 2025, and he's been seen walking around with Trump's bust on his chest. I hope we can all agree that it's a scary thing when this guy, a clear Trump loyalist, is in charge of who can say what on TV. Speaking of Trump loyalists, another thing that should be alarming to everybody is how the right reacted to Charlie Kirk's death. Because a shit ton of people on the right, including the President of the United States of America, immediately blamed the left and essentially called for a fucking civil war.
For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today.
Anybody else notice that this is clearly AI? Like, isn't that weird that the President of the United States of America is like posting AI videos of himself where he's blaming half of the country for a crime that nobody's been committed of yet? Like, at this time, there wasn't even like a real person of interest. Don't we think that that's weird? And like, this is a real video. I didn't just find this in the depths of the internet. He posted this on purpose. It being AI should be enough for people to be freaking the fuck out. But this is just like a normal day. Anyway, let's see how Stephen Miller, Trump's chief of staff, handled this situation.
There is a domestic terrorism movement in this country. When you see these organized doxing campaigns, where the left calls people enemies of the republic, calls them fascists, says they're Nazis, says they're evil, says they have to be removed, and then prints their addresses, what do you think they're trying to do? They are trying to inspire someone to murder them. That is their objective. That is their intent. And when you see online, Sean, as we've seen for the last few days, tape after tape after tape of federal workers, bureaucrats, staffers in the Pentagon, educators, professors, healthcare workers, nurses, celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk, these are radicalized people. There is a domestic terrorism movement in this country.
My God, he is a creepy looking fuck, huh? I get it. Like, if I looked like that, I would be mad at the world too. I do find it a little bit ironic that the man who's responsible for Trump's Muslim ban and alligator Alcatraz would be calling anybody radical about anything, but that's just me. But come on, what about the members of the media? I'm sure they're normal, right? What was Matt Walsh saying? He has movies in the movie theaters. I'm sure he was level-headed and not fucking psychotic, right? Wrong. Wrong again.
You're killing us in our churches. You tried to kill our president. You killed one of our greatest advocates in Charlie Kirk. You have been openly cheering for and celebrating and encouraging and committing political violence for years. Antifa, BLM, well-funded, highly orchestrated, widespread movements based in and fueled by violence. You made a hero out of Luigi Mangione. And you celebrate Charlie's death even now. It's too late to turn the temperature down. This is not a time to hold hands. It's a time for justice. It is a time for good to fight back against evil. It is time for the righteous to prevail, for the sake of our country and for our families and our children. and for Charlie.
This shit made me so angry I literally had to turn on the camera and re-record this section because I realized I wasn't mean enough the first time. I don't know why you dumbasses like to pretend that the person who tried to kill Trump wasn't a registered Republican. Also, since this dumb bitch wants to talk about churches, I wonder if he has a segment on his dog shit show about the dude who just shot up a Mormon church and set it on fire. Probably doesn't want to talk about that guy since there's proof that he had a MAGA flag or a sign or some other dumb bullshit in his front yard. Probably don't want to talk about that guy, right? You fucking idiot. Matt Walsh has always bugged the fuck out of me because the reality is all he does is sell victimhood to mediocre white people. And if you're a Matt Walsh fan and that hurt your feelings, good, because I'm talking about you. This motherfucker wants to talk about good and evil. What is good about the MAGA movement? You guys are the ones putting people in cages, separating families from their children. You don't want to give kids free lunch. You don't want to help the poor. Fox News, your biggest news network, talked about euthanizing homeless people like 2 weeks ago. I don't hear any uproar about that shit. You think if God came down tomorrow, he would applaud the ICE agents that took those little black kids out of their house at 2 in the morning, it zip tied them together, separating them from their families too? You think he would cheer this shit on? Yeah, probably not. You people are disgusting losers who use God to propagate your evil. That's what you actually are, Matthew. You fucking idiot. Your claim to fame is 2 dog shit movies. One shitting on trans people for no reason, and then when your dumbass went on Joe Rogan's podcast, you expose yourself as knowing nothing. The second one was about how racism isn't a big deal in America anymore. Open your eyes. Does it look like racism isn't f***ing thriving in this bitch? I didn't think so. You clown fuck. Oh, I'm not gonna lie, it felt good to get that off my chest. But anyway, there's 2 things I get from these 3 dog shit segments. The first one, we had no idea who the shooter was at this time, and we damn sure didn't know their motivations. Technically, we still don't know. There's been no trial. The guy who's been caught hasn't said shit. And I think we can all agree that this FBI is not the most trustworthy. So when they're giving us these text messages that sound fake as hell, I think at the very least we should all be a little bit skeptical. But you know what I'm not skeptical of? Aura, the sponsor of today's video. See how I did that? You see how smooth that was? Aura is an all-in-one, easy-to-use digital solution that protects you from digital threats. Data brokers are known for taking your information and selling it to the highest bidder. This is done all the time without your consent. And while legally these data brokers do have to remove your information from these lists if you ask them, they make it super difficult. This is where Aura comes into play. The first day I ever used Aura, they found 17 different data breaches and a virus on my computer. I just put in my email and my phone number, clicked a few buttons, and Aura took care of it for me. It was super easy. Aura also protects you and all your info with a VPN, antiviral and password management software, plus a bunch of other things I definitely understand. And my favorite part is that if anything does happen, Aura includes $5 million in identity theft insurance protection. And they have US fraud experts ready to help 24/7. So if you're interested in getting a 2-week free trial, go to the first link in my description or go to aura.com/Kamal. I appreciate you guys for actually watching this ad. Now let's get back to our valiant leader. It's fair to not trust an FBI that's run by a dude who only got chosen for the job because he wrote a fucking children's book about Donald Trump. And 2, these are senators, members of the House, top right-wing officials, and again, the President of the United States. So please stop with the both sides did this shit stuff. It's fucking stupid. That doesn't mean that people on the left were being annoying as shit with the cancel culture stuff in 2016. Your feelings are valid, I promise you. But do not let that blind you from what's going on right now. Because when government officials are saying this shit, it's a totally different thing. Because like I said, this fight for freedom of speech has been going on since Trump first got elected. Let's not forget, this was the guy who tried to shoot protesters in the leg so he could take a fucking picture.
What specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters?
He says, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
The commander-in-chief was suggesting that the U.S. military shoot protesters.
Yes, in the streets of our nation's capital.
All the people who had any sort of decency or normalcy that worked for Trump the first time are gone now. You think that drunk bitch Pete Hegseth would have stopped Trump in that same situation?
In June of 2020, then President Trump directed former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper to shoot protesters in the legs in downtown D.C., an order Secretary Esper refused to comply with. Would you carry out such an order from President Trump?
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard unit that was in Lafayette Square during those
events. Would you carry out an order to shoot protesters in the legs?
I saw 50 Secret Service agents get injured by rioters trying to jump over the fence, set the church on fire, and destroy
a statue. That sounds to me that you will comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg. Moving on.
Yeah, me either. And when it comes to Trump's second term, Jimmy Kimmel's not even the first late night host to lose his job because of pressure from Donald Trump. Stephen Colbert in July had his show canceled because essentially the company that he worked for wanted a merger and they needed FCC approval from the government, and they knew that a good way to get in the good graces of our valiant leader was to cancel his show. And you know what? It worked. This is exactly what a lot of these right-wing freedom of speech warriors were talking about a few years ago, except this time it's actually the government doing it and they're the ones that are cheering it on. I mean, does anybody else find this to be a bit hypocritical for these people who've made Hunter Biden's laptop their entire personality over these past 5 years to be now gathering lists of tens of thousands of American citizens, doxing them, trying to get them fired because they made jokes about a podcaster? What happened to all that freedom of speech? It's almost like you guys just pull the Constitution out of your ass whenever you want to throw a little temper tantrum about some stupid bullshit, but that's just me. What's wrong with you people? Aren't you the same people who've made freedom of speech your entire personality over these past 10 years? It makes me wonder where you guys were at with Mahmoud Khalil. God, I hope I said his name right. When he was taken out of his home and put in a detention center for 3 months for organizing peaceful protests. Like where was the outrage from you guys then? Imagine you're organizing a protest, standing up for your people, women and children who are getting bombed on a daily basis in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And because of that, they break into your home, drag you out of your house, put you in a truck, and put you in a detention center for months where you cannot see your family, you couldn't talk to lawyers for days. Why are we good with this? It's great that like people are up in arms about the Jimmy Kimmel shit, but like, let's be honest, way worse shit has been going on since this motherfucker became president, and this feels like the first time people are really stepping up and giving a shit, and honestly, it's kind of fucking gross. Sorry to be a dick, but like, that's just genuinely how I feel. Like, motherfuckers, I've been talking about alligator Alcatraz as a joke for months. People are going missing for months. And this like millionaire white dude that nobody even really likes lost his job for 4 days and people were freaking the f out. It's kind of what I hate about this country, if I'm being honest. Hell, even I'm talking about Jimmy Kimmel and freedom of speech, but Donald Trump has been removing Black history from museums for months now.
President Trump is now ordering a review of the Smithsonian museums, accusing the institutions of focusing too much on, quote, how bad slavery was.
If Jimmy Kimmel never worked a day in his life, he would be better off than 99% of us. It's always going to be the underprivileged and marginalized groups who get hit the hardest when people like Trump are in power. Immigrants are suffering. People on social services are suffering. Hell, even the farmers that voted this dumbass in office are suffering because of his horrible policies. And I haven't even mentioned all of the people outside of America who are suffering because of these terrible policies. Now back to Kimmel, I think it's great that his show is back. Not because I'm gonna watch it, but because it's a win for freedom of speech. It is a way for us to tell the government, hey, fuck off, you don't have as much control as you think you do. Right after the news broke out about Kimmel's suspension, so many people were canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions that it crashed the website. I saw a lady canceling her $150,000 Disney wedding, and even the soulless A-list actors of Hollywood banded together and told Disney that they weren't going to stand for this bullshit. And Disney clearly felt that $4 billion pressure and folded. Now, obviously, they shouldn't have canceled the show the first time, but you know, better late than never, I guess. Like I said, I do think this was a win, but I'm also not naive enough to think that Trump and his crew of political parasites are just gonna stop here. The woman who is in charge of our Justice Department said that she was going to go after people for hate speech. You know, that thing that's protected by the First Amendment?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech.
These people aren't going to give up here. We're not even a year in. And look at all the bullshit that's been happening. And like I said at the beginning of this video, what Trump just passed is a huge deal. A few days ago, our valiant leader signed what is called a national security derivative, one they're calling NSPM7. Now, the government is saying this is to try to counter domestic terrorism and political violence. From the left, of course. So now Trump is directing the DOJ, the FBI, and other national security departments to disrupt any group or individuals who are instigating political violence, including before any violence occurs. So basically, these motherfuckers are on some psychopath shit and are now going to be disrupting people for crimes they think might happen based off of something you said or did. But don't worry, it gets even better because they actually put how they're going to be targeting people. According to them, it's going to be any group or individual who can be categorized as the following: anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-Christian. I thought this was a secular nation, but all right. Also, remember when Mamdani won and all these Republicans were talking about how he was going to institute Sharia law? I just find it interesting because I found that it's only been white Christians in the government who are trying to force their religion on me, but maybe that's just me.
An Oklahoma high school teacher speaking out about Bibles ordered by the state education department to be incorporated into lessons for grade 5 through 12.
But moving on, anyone who supports the overthrow of the government, I'm pretty sure this is the administration who released all the January 6ers, people who literally tried to overthrow the government and kill the vice president of the United States of America, but okay.
In a newly released interview, former President Trump defending rioters who chanted "Hang Mike Pence" during the January 6th Capitol insurrection. The audio is from an interview with ABC News' Jonathan Karl, conducted at Mar-a-Lago back in March. Karl asked him whether he was worried about Vice President Mike Pence's safety during the riot. Mr. Trump then said it was, quote, common sense for rioters to call for Pence to be hanged.
You heard those chants. That was terrible. I mean, those,
He could have, well, the people were very angry.
They're saying hang Mike
Because
Pence.
it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right?
Yeah.
How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
Has extreme views on migration. I'm pretty sure you guys are the alligator Alcatraz people, and I'm pretty sure you guys are the ones who took a bunch of innocent people who've never really committed any actual crimes and put them in an insane concentration camp in another country. I'm pretty sure this is the administration that has a bunch of immigrants from all over the world missing. I'm pretty sure that's been y'all. So what do you think they mean by extreme leftist views on migration? Probably nothing good, right? But let's continue. Extreme views on race. Well, I'm pretty sure this is the administration that immediately targeted things like DEI because I got a bunch of ignorant white people to be mad about something they don't understand. Also, I'm pretty sure that this is the administration that immediately started removing Black history from museums. So I wonder what they mean by that. Again, probably something up, right? Extreme views on gender. Again, this is the administration that dedicates all of their energy to shitting on trans people, even though they're like less than 1% of the population. So what do you think they mean by that? Hostility toward those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility to those who hold traditional American views on morality. Again, I feel like we covered the religion thing, but the fact that Donald Trump is questioning anybody on morality is one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever heard in my life. So this is it, guys. Now we're at a point where anybody who holds any of these sentiments can be targeted by the FBI because, hey, they might be a terrorist. It goes without saying that this is batshit crazy. I'm sure that damn near every single person watching this video has expressed at least one of these sentiments publicly or privately in the past 25 minutes. So yeah, it's here. All that Orwellian shit that we read about as kids, it's here. So this is them trying to do that. And my whole thing is, are we going to let them? And to anyone who thinks that this administration is going to handle this power with grace and responsibility, there's a billion examples of why that's an insane thing to believe. But let's bring it back with this Kimmel situation. Brendan Carr said he went after Kimmel because Kimmel was lying and spreading misinformation, right? But the reality is, Jimmy Kimmel was actually never wrong about anything. He never said whether the kid was or wasn't MAGA. His whole point was that MAGA's whole intention was to try to separate this kid from their movement, which is just factual. Again, we're not even a year in, and we already have a moment where the government is trying to take down a huge television show based off of something that he never even did. And that's with the world watching them. So what do you think they're gonna do to you in private? So this is where we're at. My suggestion would be to keep fighting and hitting these motherfuckers in their pocketbooks. All these politicians, they have donors, and those donors usually make money from business. So I say we figure out who these businesses are and we boycott them. It worked with Disney, it worked with Target. I say we keep it up. Also, to everybody with a platform, I think we should just put maybe a little bit more focus into the regular people who are getting screwed over and a little bit less attention to the multimillionaires who are barely affected. If you made it to the end of this video, I do appreciate you. And if you want to watch me make fun of some of the people who got us into this situation, check out this video.